Hi, welcome back to First Chapter. So, today I'm going to be reading the first chapter of another author's book. Some authors don't want to get in front of the camera, but still want to take advantage of having readers enjoy their first chapter. Anyway, so it's been a rough couple of weeks for me. I was sick and then I tumbled down some stairs and knocked myself in the head. But anyway, minor concussion, all good now. And so I'm just going to jump right to it. Sarah Jacobson and Let Me Be Your Whiskey. This is a series book, so this is book 1 in the Let Me Be Yours series. Chapter 1, Alex. I rolled down the window of my beat-up old Chevrolet Chevelle and took a deep breath. The air was thick and muggy. Now the sun had gone down and it felt like it was going to be a sticky, humid night. I had decided I was already over this heat wave as I wiped the sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand for the 100th time and pulled off the Lee Highway just before the town of Jasper in Tennessee. I had left Chattanooga in a hurry with the smell of tonight's conquest still unpleasantly in my nostrils and no doubt all over my clothes. Cheap beer, chewing tobacco, and sweat. I knew I'd much rather have chewed off my gear-changing hand than have accidentally woke him up by taking a shower. Urgh! I said out loud as I tried to shake off the disgust I felt in myself. Why do you do this to yourself, Alex? For a brief moment I tried to recall my conquest name. James, John, Jerry. I didn't know, and if I was being honest with myself, I'd stopped worrying about their names a long time ago, mostly because it was better to pretend it never had happened. I wiped the sweat from my brow with the back of my hand again before reaching into the glove box for my cell phone and turning it on. Keeping one eye on the empty road ahead, I scrolled through my limited list of contacts and dialed Logan Reynolds. Alex, Logan answered. There was a lot of noise in the background. On a Saturday night, his bar and grill was pretty busy. Hey, Reynolds, how are you? I asked. It was always a relief to hear Logan's voice. Surviving. You know me. Are you in town then? He asked in a strong Tennessee accent, a hopeful tone echoing through his question. I am, and I'm only a couple of minutes out, I replied as I pulled sharply down the long dirt road towards Logan's Bar and Grill. How long do I get the pleasure for this time? He almost shouted down the phone over the background noise. I don't know. We'll see. My car's on the outs again, I said glumly. Okay, well, park around back by the apartment. I'll see you soon. Logan sighed as he hung up. I screwed up my face as I threw my phone back in the glove box. I knew I probably appeared to take advantage of Logan. After all, I did just show up without really announcing myself or calling ahead. I also knew he was in love with me and that he'd do anything for me. That being said, Logan was one of the very few people on this earth that I actually valued at all. So I tried very hard not to get involved romantically with him. The idea of it would make my skin crawl. So I didn't want to fill him with false hope that we could actually make something work. I was a straight up train wreck, and everyone that met me knew it. Logan deserved a lot better than me as far as I was concerned. I pulled up in front of Logan's apartment, which was hidden round the back of the bar. My car was making an awful noise. I was glad there was no homes close by, as the bang alone would have woken some folks for sure. Damn piece of shit, I said as I got out and slammed the door, kicking the front driver's side wheel for good measure. I had to admit I was a little buzzed and knew I would have gotten myself a DUI if I'd been pulled over, but God, I had to get out of that dirty motel room and away from that disgusting man. I checked my reflection in the window of my car. Sweet Jesus, girl, I said as I shook my head and pulled the wooden drumstick out of my long black hair and let it fall loose. I ripped off the smelly flannel shirt I was wearing and sniffed the black tank top I had on underneath. It didn't smell as bad as my shirt. I pulled the tank top from my waistband and my skinny blue jeans and then wiped my fingers under my eyes to tidy up any smeared makeup. I sighed loudly. This was about as good as I was going to get until I could take a shower and clean up. I opened the trunk of my car and pulled out my khaki duffel bag. I stuffed my smelly shirt inside and pulled out my denim jacket and I slipped it on. Gotta love life on the road, I said sarcastically to myself as I took a deep breath. filling myself with the usual pretend confidence, and began the walk of shame across the gravel parking lot back to the back door of Logan's bar. I noticed that with the exception of the muffled noise coming from inside, it was silent. I found so much peace in the silence of night. I felt a little safer and a lot more at ease, almost as if the darkness and the quietness shielded me from the rest of the world, from the judgment, and from myself. The shadows never worried me, nor did the sounds of the little creatures rustling in the branches of the bushes and the trees. The darkness was a safest place of safe places, especially on a clear night. I would often park and lie on the hood of my joke of a car and stare at the stars, millions of stars lighting up the night sky. They made me feel like I was small and insignificant, and that me and my shitty life were nothing compared to the bigger picture. I promised myself on many a night, looking up at that, I could easily just change my life, but who was I kidding? Come morning, I was back on the road and making the same choices and the same mistakes. I didn't know how to change. I approached the back door of the bar and grill. Logan was waiting for me. He waved me in as he pushed open the screen door. "Hey, Logan," I said with a self-conscious smile. "Hey, pretty girl, you all right?" he asked as he held his arms open for me. I walked into his arms and into the comforting embrace. He held me tightly, almost protectively, and I tried not to cry. He knew the life I chose to live, and I knew he wished more than anything that he could save me from it. "Same as always, Logan, but I'm glad to see you," I said as I pulled away from his embrace and gave him a bigger hug and more genuine smile. "You hungry?" Logan asked as he smiled back. "I can cook you up a burger and some fries." I felt my stomach rumble at the offer. I had no idea when I last ate. I nodded. "That'd be great, Logan. Thanks." Logan reached for my bag and held onto my hand tightly as he led me into the kitchen and pointed to a clear worktop across the room. The kitchen was a real big for a bar of this size, but Logan prized himself on his food and didn't want to compromise. All the worktops, cupboards, and appliances were shiny stainless steel. "You sit," he said, letting go of my hand and flashing another sweet smile as he dropped my bag on the ground by the worktop. "Give me 5 minutes." He turned the fryer and grill on. He was singing to himself as he opened the refrigerator and pulled out a large beef patty, throwing it onto the grill once it was hot. I smiled as I watched him dance while he loaded the fryer with some fries and flipped over the patty before topping it with pepper jack cheese. Logan was a tall, slim man. He had long, messy blonde hair, deep brown eyes that you could easily fall into. He also had a real pretty boy smile with perfect white teeth that he liked to hide underneath a rough, stubbly beard. He was a hit with the local ladies and always the object of affection with his waitress staff. It baffled me as to why Logan had never settled down and had a family. He had such a gentle and caring personality. He always found the time to listen or to help anyone, and still this man was single. "Here," Logan said, shaking me out of my head as he handed me a tumbler of whiskey. "This'll calm you down. Looks like you had a bad night," he asked as he went back to the grill and put my burger together. I noticed Logan didn't make eye contact when he asked the question. I knew he dreaded what I would say, and he wasn't very subtle about it. "Just the same old stuff, Logan, you know." I felt ashamed in that moment and wanted to cry again, but I held myself together. "Why do you do this to yourself, Alex?" Logan asked. He shook his head as he walked over with my burger and fries and stood eye to eye with me. "I don't know," I said as I looked down and away from his judgmental gaze. "It's like you prefer to feed your demons rather than fight them," Logan said as his expression changed. I wasn't sure if it was disgust or disappointment. He glared at me for a moment, then jumped up on the worktop next to me and put his hands on my knee. "Maybe that's exactly what I'm doing," I said as I picked up my cheeseburger and stuffed it in my mouth. "I don't know anything else, Logan." Logan jumped down off the worktop and poured himself a drink, pouring whiskey to the top of his glass and drinking it straight down. It made me feel like shit that he needed to be buzzed to deal with me. Tell me about it. Tell me what happened, Logan said as he jumped up and sat on the worktop opposite me, giving me his full attention. No, I said with a mouthful. I felt humiliated enough as it was. Come on, you'll feel better, Logan said with a sincere smile. I could see straight through the smile and to the sadness still clear in his deep brown eyes. I took a deep breath and shook my head no. I had no choice but to tell him something. I pulled into a motel just outside Chattanooga on my way here. I'd been driving all night and all morning, so I thought I'd stop and get a bite and a drink. Same old story, Logan. I ate, I got drunk, I got hounded by the biggest loser in the place, drank some more, took him back to my room, and allowed him to have his disgusting way with me. I shook my head and shrugged my shoulders. What else do you want me to say? I was trying to act tough, but it didn't seem he was having any of it. Logan held his hands together and pressed them to his lips, sitting silently for what seemed like hours. Why do you go for the biggest losers? You never explained that to me. Of all the guys that could treat you right, you go for assholes. Why? He asked without making eye contact. Let's just say it goes back to my first experience. I've never been in love, and I'm pretty sure I don't deserve to be loved. I get what I need out of doing this, I said unconvincingly. Please don't ask me to explain anymore. You don't get what you need. Nobody needs to hate themselves like you do, Logan said as he jumped down and put his glass next to the dishwasher. He stood for a second, facing away from me, and ran his fingers through his long blonde hair, holding his hands on top of his head. I felt like he punched me in the gut. I hated that he was right. I hated he saw straight through me, but I loved him for his honesty. I didn't know what to say, so I silently finished my food, taking bites so I could try and escape the uncomfortable atmosphere that had been here since I'd walked into the building. Logan turned to me and put his hands in his jeans pocket, pulling out a set of keys. Without making eye contact with me, he handed me the keys and said, Go on, head over to the apartment and take a shower. Thanks, Logan. Would it be okay if I did some laundry? I asked as I jumped down from the worktop and took the keys while handing him back the empty food basket. Sure, sweetheart, you know where everything is. Make yourself at home. I'll be back after closing. Oh, and remind me to take a look at your car tomorrow. Logan dropped the food basket on the worktop, took one last look at me, and left the kitchen, punching the door frame as he passed through it. Thanks, I whispered sadly as I stood alone in the kitchen. It was always uncomfortable when I arrived. I always felt like I was letting Logan down. I wished I could be the girl he wanted me to be, but I didn't know what love even felt like. And if I did, I wasn't sure that was what I felt for him. I sighed as I picked up my duffel bag and crept out the back door that I'd come through, and slowly dragged the heels of my boots across the gravel parking lot and up the front door to Logan's tiny apartment. I fiddled with the lock before finally letting myself in. I dropped my duffel bag onto the small round breakfast table by the kitchen and looked around. I always felt this place was more of a trailer than an apartment. It had a small kitchen on one end and a living room on the other, with one bedroom and a small shower room at the back. I liked it. It was plenty big enough for one person. Not that I would even be able to fill a space this small. Everything I owned was in the duffel bag on the table, except for a couple small boxes in the trunk of my car. I liked that I wasn't attached to things, not like I was a young girl, not like when I was a young girl, when life was all about the things I had. That was a very long time ago, before everything changed. I could still smell that smell on me. I frowned and opened my duffel bag and pulled out my wash bag before making my way into Logan's bedroom. I opened his dresser and dug around to find myself a long-sleeved t-shirt and a pair of boxers to sleep in, then dragged my tired body into the small shower room and switched on the shower. While the water was heating up, I looked in the mirror, taking a long look at my face. Good Lord, Alex, no wonder he gives you such a hard time, I said, shaking my head at the disgrace that stared back at me. Logan had made me feel bad about myself. I kept going over our conversation as I pulled out some makeup, removing wipes from my wash bag, and took off all my makeup. It still surprised me that I looked so young with a clean face, and I hated it. I could picture all the old women I'd met that had told me that my makeup, drinking, smoking, and partying would age my skin. It hadn't. Not yet, at least. My makeup gave me confidence, almost as if it was a disguise or a mask. It meant I could be someone, something different. I stepped into the shower and let the water wash over my body. Even though it was so hot out, I had made myself a hot shower. I only took hot showers these days. I like to wash away any remnants of the many creeps that had had their hands on me. My mind wandered back to the drunken evening I'd had. I shuddered as I remembered the scruffy redneck ran his hands all over my body. I scrubbed my body raw until it felt clean and washed my hair before getting out. I got myself dressed in the clothes I had borrowed from Logan and tied my damp hair up in a bun. I felt in a daze as I picked up my dirty clothes from the floor. I took them in the kitchen and unpacked all of my clothes from my duffel bag and loaded them in the washer and set the washing machine going. I sat on the floor in front of the washer and watched that awful week I'd had fall off my clothes as they beat around in the drum. It was a sad fact that half a load of clothes spinning in the machine was all I had to my name. My brain was noisy and I felt a little suffocated. I stood up in the middle of Logan's kitchen with no idea of what to do with myself. I pulled out a pack of cigarettes from my duffel and poured myself a glass of whiskey from Logan's stash that he hid in the top cupboard. It was too stuffy in the apartment and I didn't like to be alone, so I decided to go outside and drink my whiskey on the porch and enjoy the clear, quiet night and the silence my mind before Logan got back. Okay, well, that was chapter 1. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. It's really sometimes hard to get the tone of another author, and I hope I did it justice. Anyway, so you guys, if you like the video or if you're enjoying the first chapters, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to all of us new authors. Anyway, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.